All right, welcome. Today I have Mark Shust. He is the founder of Academy and so many other things. Mark, give us your 10,000-foot view of how you got started, what you're doing.
Sure. Yeah, I've been in Magento since the early days of 1.4, I think, where I caught wind of it and I got recruited on, got kind of trained by the Magento team at the time. It was Magento Inc. And yeah, just picked up that super complex framework. Been involved with it ever since. Magento 2 came out. I had a hard time setting up a development instance of it. So led me down the path of Docker Magento, which I've built and maintained now for like 7 or 8 years. And along that way, I realized that other people probably have trouble learning the framework. I had a really tough time with Magento 2, even though I was really experienced with Magento 1. And yeah, I thought others probably have the same issues. So a few years later, I started M Academy, and it's a place that has self-paced courses, developer community, some tools built around Magento. Yeah, I have a all-inclusive university package where you can enroll. It's like a all-inclusive membership and an AI tutor, and I've been doing that for last 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. And obviously, you're very well known in the community, and you have helped with thousands of people, I would imagine, just kind of getting through Magento and learning how to do it, become better developers. Talk a little bit about kind of your vision and goal of M Academy and
Yeah, it's meant to just kind of take that complex framework and drastically simplify it. So really anyone that's kind of a somewhat experienced programmer can pick it up. I had trouble with learning it completely. There was no documentation, or it was documented, but it was kind of fragmented and very confusing and hard to follow along. And Adobe has training out there, but it's thousands of dollars, very expensive, and it prices out like small, medium-sized businesses that want to onboard and train their Magento developers. And so yeah, I noticed that gap, and I create completely self-paced courses. The lessons within it are very streamlined and simplified. They're all usually between 1 and 5 minutes, with some exceptions for some courses. But each lesson kind of stands alone and teaches one specific topic. And it's done in a what I call linear learning approach. So it's built in an order that just helps you understand it really quickly and simply, and right away.
that's perfect. All right. Well, what we're really here to talk about is we'll call it Magento 3 or Marco. I guess I'm not sure what you want to call it. You have something that is released today, April 1st, that is super exciting. So tell us about your inspiration to do this and what it means and how it's configured.
Yeah. So working with Magento, I've been working with it for I don't even know how long, maybe 15 years. So and I'm intricately involved with all of the pain points and frustrations, having taught it for so many years, and noticed kind of recurring questions that come up and issues with trying to figure things out. And Magento is very, very powerful, but it's really just an e-commerce platform too. It's not like a more general purpose framework. It is built on top of Zen, but that was so many years ago already. And Magento also ships with like the kitchen sink, where like there's all these modules, right? And it's slow kind of by default out of the box. There are of course other frameworks that I love, like Laravel. I've built quite a few apps on Laravel, and I was actually a Laravel developer for a year before I came back to Magento land. It's like the fast and modern way to build an app in modern days, but it really lacks the modularity that you actually get in Magento. And there's really no clean way to override or extend vendor code or other module code that you install in Laravel. So I think Magento got a lot of things right with specifically the ecosystem, like the module ecosystem. WordPress and Drupal kind of have that built around the same way, with community modules and the marketplace and sharing code among many projects. And Magento also has awesome like dependency injection that's, I think, unrivaled with compared to other platforms. And it has more like modularity than any other system. But again, it's just built for e-commerce. But yeah, Magento, I think, got a lot of stuff wrong too. Like it's brutally complex. No one can kind of argue against that. Sure, you're familiar with it. Takes like months to onboard a developer, if not like years to master. It has a extremely large XML layer that's kind of disconnected from the code also. So you have to, like creating a route, you have to set your routes.xml file, and then you have the route file. So it's like it's not completely unified and simple. So, and it forces you to do stuff like the Magento way, right? We always know like you have to follow the framework and the conventions and exactly how they lay things out. Otherwise, things won't work. And error messages are also like really cryptic or like non-existent. So I heard that Magento 2 also, before it came released, it was under development for like a long time, 6 or 7 years. And I heard it was originally supposed to be really simple. It was actually supposed to be Magento 1 simplified. Somewhere along the way, it kind of like lost track. But I've always wondered, like, what is that alternate future? Like, what would it have looked like if they actually did make it simpler? And what would Magento look like if I was designing a framework today from scratch using like modern PHP 8.5 standards? And what would I keep? What would I throw away? And can I have all the Magento's power too that it has, like the dependency injection layer, the modularity, the plugin system, the ecosystem, but without all the complexity that Magento has? And what if like we can pretty much get rid of the XML layer completely? And when you had errors, that you can actually like get an actual document of what went wrong, why it went wrong, exactly how to fix it. And it might even give you something to like copy and paste into like an LLM. All of our development workflows have changed in the last year. And, it doesn't make sense not to have that tight integration with the AI and LLM layer. So I had the idea to build a brand new framework. Didn't know a good name for it. I always like naming things with an M. It's my name and it's M Academy. So I just went with Marko because that's kind of my name. And the idea is just that it's a completely modern PHP framework that takes all the best ideas of Magento, like the dependency injection layer, the modularity, the plugin system, and rebuilds them without all of the complexity that Magento has. So that's like the premise. I can go into more detail if you want.
Yeah, so I think I'm interested. This isn't sort of a refactor of Magento 2. This is a brand new endeavor. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yes. I've been teasing it as Magento 3, but I kind of see it as a Magento 3 in a way. It's not meant to be a complete replacement of Magento at all. It's definitely going to ship as a 0.1, which I don't think I've ever done before. It's always been 1.0 for me when I release on release day, but it's definitely going to start off as an experimental framework. I'd love feedback from everyone out there looking at it. Hey, what does it get right? What does it get wrong? Where does this work? I'd like you to see how it works and how easy it is to configure modules and configuration and things just straight in PHP with 8.5, using new features like attributes, which I think are extremely powerful and very overlooked. And seeing the extreme modularity that it actually uses.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned too that you're not tied to any one database. You could use different types of databases as well now, which is actually the original vision. I remember of Yoav saying that Magento 2 you can attach it to MS SQL or MySQL or Postgre, whatever database you want. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I from day one, I've always envisioned like a hot swappable module piece, especially if you have the powerful dependency injection layer there where you rely just on interfaces. So you can have like a database interface and then whatever module you choose to install. Let's say I install the database MySQL module. All of the bindings will be set up in the background. So as long as you use that database interface, they could be hot swapped pretty much as you enable the module. So same thing if I was using like Postgres. I've been doing a lot of more Postgres work lately after working with MySQL for 25 years. Because you can store vector embeddings in it, which is very powerful for LLMs and vectorized search. It's made for that hot swappable. So I can actually just remove one module and install the Postgres module and not change any of the other underlying code. Everything will just still work. So when you build kind of from the ground up based completely on interfaces and with this modularized system, it allows you to do things like that. Yeah, and it's a true hot swap, implementation. Even when you start working on a new Marko framework project and you don't have a database driver installed by default, it'll actually tell you and ask you which one you want to install. And you could just copy paste the code and get things installed and working.
Do you envision this? So is your vision kind of side by side with Magento 2, or is this a drop in replacement eventually? Or give us a vision on where it's going to go for e-commerce.
It's Marko is more of the framework that I wish Magento was. So I would not say it's a replacement for Magento. Magento has the thing it has going for itself is it has every single feature under the sun for commerce. And it would take years and years and years for Marko to do that. That said, I know all of our development processes have changed over the last year or two. If you want to ask AI to build a Magento module and it's within a very built out platform, it's going to get very confused because of the multiple layers of architecture that Magento has, like XML and configuration and fallback and the different kind of languages that it uses. So the LLM just kind of chokes on context. So the idea is that Marko will provide you a way to build something like Magento. So you can almost think of it like the Zen framework of Magento. It's the behind the scenes framework, kind of like Symfony and Laravel, but you can build an app on top of it. You can build a Marko commerce app and have all of that add to cart functionality, checkout and everything. And you could build it very fast using LLMs too, based on the standards and structure that are in place in the framework.
So do you think there's a solution here? Because MySQL doesn't have vectorized searches. Vectorized embeddings right now. Is that correct? And this could be something that sits alongside somebody's Magento 2 installation. They could then cross-reference that vectorized part of it and start using them together. Is that some of the vision you have on this?
You definitely could. If you are familiar with running something like Magento and WordPress side by side, I know that's a common setup. You can definitely do something like that with Marko and even gradually build something out completely custom. I think custom apps are taking off right now because of LLMs. You could just ask the LLM and it'll build anything you want. So you can almost start from scratch. Nothing's implemented. There's a clean slate that you can start with. But here's an organized way to actually build something out that has this module ecosystem in place. So again, I would probably, even for some new apps, I'd still use Laravel a lot too, because it's so awesome and powerful. It depends what my needs are. But if I want to build something that's more modular, that has a module ecosystem like Magento, like Drupal, like WordPress, that opens up the ability for you to share modules, it could become very powerful. And not to say that you can't build something that you currently build in Laravel and Marko, you absolutely can. And that's kind of the plan, that it's kind of a universal framework for doing all of these different things and doing it in a very simple and elegant and clean way.
You had sent me a Marko talk. Tell us a little bit about that, what it does, and how developers could use that to kind of learn the framework and get started on a project.
Sure. As launch day, I definitely wanted an app that is out there. I'll probably have other ones as well, but Marko Talk is pretty much an implementation of an app that is run on the Marko framework. So this is how a specific app, like something like Magento, would look like. Of course, extremely simplified down to just demonstrating the core aspects of the framework. But Marko Talk is a place where it has spaces and you can chat with using messages, kind of like a very simplified Slack. And you could do things like pin messages on the board, react with smileys, leave messages. And what's cool about it is it's all real time. So you can have many users hooked into the same framework or this app at once and logged in. And just like Slack, you can send messages and they appear in real time in everyone else's windows. So it's a real time messaging app. But what's interesting about this is it's built completely with PHP. There are no WebSockets. There is no Node.js. It works with server sent events, and it actually uses the server sent event package from Marko to do this. And the way it can do this is, again, another benefit of Postgres is that it has listen architecture in there to send messages like PubSub, and it integrates great with AMP PHP, which is what we use behind the scenes to automatically send these messages out in real time over server sent events. So it's very cool. If you've ever dealt with Node.js and PHP, and it's kind of, you have all these different systems, and then you have systems to maintain, you need maybe a Redis database, right, for PubSub, you need Node.js and a whole JavaScript app that's discombobulated from your from your main apps. Marko, you could just build it all with PHP. It's really cool. It's a way to just streamline everything, make it easy to manage as well.
What do you say to the naysayers who say PHP is dead? And I'm guessing people have been saying that for the last, whatever, 20 years. The life of PHP, what do you tell them today that
Uh,
PHP is alive and kicking?
Well, I'm building new frameworks and apps myself in PHP, and I my go-to has always been in the last few years Laravel. I don't even consider Node.js, even though I like it. I've done extensive work with WebSockets in real time and Socket.io and things like that in Node. But PHP gives you a very streamlined way to connect to the database, have authentication, have a very distinguished server side language that's pretty much built for the server. Node.js is definitely more of the client side, it seems. It doesn't, I've always had pretty bad experiences trying to build an actual CRUD app in Node.js. Maybe it's because I don't have extensive JavaScript, like super experience, but PHP just makes it simple and there's no compile going on. And, it's just, it's very easy to build something, especially in the age of LLMs, build something very quickly that works, that can stand up and iterate on and actually ship something. And I think PHP is great at, if nothing else, it's great at shipping. So there's been so many enhancements to the language as well. Again, when Magento 2 was built back a while ago, maybe a decade ago, it didn't have things that were introduced in PHP 8.5 or any of the recent versions like attributes or constructor property promotion or, just things that make your whole development experience so much better. So PHP has definitely continued to evolve, and I believe it'll keep continuing to evolve. I see no reason not to think that, and it's definitely a great. It's my go-to language for everything.
Looking back, I think Magento 2 was supposed to be released in 2012, and they got delayed by a number of years for refactor after refactor. And you had earlier said the hope this is like what maybe the original vision of Magento 2 should have been. What are you hoping that developers now take this, and what would you like back from developers when they're using the framework?
I would just like feedback. Let me know what works. And it's funny you speak to Magento 2 being delayed year over year. I remember that it was like 5 or 6 years. It was a long time that kept getting delayed and pushed back. And what's crazy is I've had this kind of vision for how I wanted the framework to be, how I wanted it to work, full PHP and PHP first citizen support with everything, no XML, simplified, all these loud error messages by design tell you not only what's wrong, but how to fix it. Also my teaching experience and just a very pragmatic language as well that just doesn't do a whole lot of magic behind the scenes. It's explicit and you know exactly what's going on. It's opinionated, but it also opens up, avenues that you can customize however you want. And when I was building this whole thing, I actually built the whole thing with AI and cloud code. And I built the whole thing myself. I got the whole core architecture done in about 30 days. And it completely changed workflow. So you go from years with a team of, I don't know how many they had on it, 10, 20 developers trying to get Magento 2 working. And I am a solo developer who's built something that's, I believe, is more powerful, is simpler to learn and easier to modify. And I did it in the core of it in 30 days. Now, it definitely isn't mature or experienced or anything. So it needs a lot of rigorous testing and feedback to make it even better. I've done my initial review of it, and I think it's good enough to ship a 0.1 version, but I would love feedback from all users and let me know, how I can make it even better.
I think one of the things that Adobe is trying to do is they are trying to make services out of Magento, out of Adobe Commerce. Do you feel as though this could serve a purpose in the bigger picture of what Magento is, Adobe Commerce is into the future, as they seemingly start splitting up the parts of Magento into smaller pieces until they can, I don't know what their plan is to have a new commerce engine behind the scenes, but do you feel as though this can really lend credence to what they're doing?
I don't know. They're they're kind of going the opposite route. So they're taking their framework and they're closed sourcing it, which I am not a fan of. I've been very vocal about that. I don't think your code should be in the hands of a SaaS, something like Shopify. When you lease out your IP to another company or you're giving so much responsibility to a third party that you have no control over. They can flip a switch and change things overnight, and not give you heads up, or they could ban your store, or it just, you have no flexibility when you're inside a SaaS. And I don't see why any of that would apply just to Shopify. It applies to Adobe Commerce SaaS, right? 100%. And I've always been a huge proponent of open source. Marko's 100% open source on a MIT platform. You can host it anywhere you want, download it for free right from packages. You don't need a weird composer authentication process or anything like that, which makes it easier to contribute, easier to use. So I'm all in on open source, and I think that's the way to go. And I don't understand how you can innovate even in today's day with AI and lacking the ability to build stuff yourself and deferring that to a third party. It's so not appealing to me.
I know from a app standpoint, you can build it on any framework you want for Shopify. Let's say this would be a great solution for even a Shopify developer to have to build if they have to build an app to connect to Shopify. They could be using the Marko framework for this.
Absolutely, you can. So that Marko's just PHP behind the scenes, and it's not a very siloed in framework that you have to use it for commerce or it's only good for this thing. You can use it for anything. You can build what you would normally build in a Laravel app, you could build in Marko. Same thing with Magento, same thing with Drupal. You can even, to tell you the power is, it's just a framework. So if you did really want to build a third party commerce system like Shopify, you can actually do it on top of the Marko framework. So you can build a multi-tenant platform on the Marko framework, get all of the plug and play advantages of modules that even, none of this is built out, but I can envision someone building a whole module marketplace ecosystem with web GUI, kind of like what we had a long time in the past, where you can just click modules and install them and get everything to work. Of course, you could do it with vetted modules and ones that have been approved by you or your team, but you can build something like that on top of this framework. There's no reason not to, and you can host it yourself. I have kind of an anti-SaaS view on using it, but for builders, right, you might want to build something like that for your own clients. That might be a request that you come in with a service job that you actually have to build something like that.
Yeah, and I think even the way Adobe's heading, they want you to use their app builder, app marketplace to be attaching to their different platforms that they're launching, including Adobe Commerce as a service, Adobe Commerce Cloud as a service, I think what they're calling it. You mentioned performance. Hoofa came out a couple of years ago, 5 years ago now, geez, or more than that really increased the performance of Magento, and then PHP has only helped in that. Where do you see Magento 2 going and the longevity of it? And just give us your thoughts on Magento 2.
Once you build a level of code and architecture that your whole business relies on, it tends to stop making sense for you to migrate to another platform. It's just existential risk, even in the age of AI and mass advancement. I think it does make sense to stay on those platforms, but I definitely seen new adoption drop. It seems like most new e-commerce is going to Shopify. Unfortunately, that's just what's happening. It makes business sense. It makes financial sense because time to market and costs is, more crucial than anything. So it's kind of part of the reason I was also building Marko too. It's like, I want to innovate. I want change. I want modern updates. I want to be able to, have the LLM build out my code, a lot of it, and build it fast. I want full control over everything. And Adobe seems to be doing the exact opposite with the Adobe Commerce software as a service. They're closing everything. We haven't seen much innovation in the ecosystem. So if we saw some new modules and new functionality and changes to the core, or maybe a new admin interface that provides real value, that's faster, or a different way of doing things, right? Can we have an alternative to XML? It's like the big things. You can't be afraid of breaking stuff. So I think that's the type of changes we need to see in the platform and the ecosystem. Hopefully, JOS and Hoover and projects like that really definitely bring fresh blood into the ecosystem and drastically help out the whole community. I think projects like that are fantastic, and we need more of them.
The kind of the messaging I hear from the European crowd is that their adoption is growing, and maybe part of it is that people are moving to the Hoofa theme and it may not be net new build, and I don't have data on net new build, but I know that the market is the Magento market is still popular, at least in the Netherlands and probably Germany. Is there some kind of messaging we can give to the Europeans to put a little bit more attention on the US market? And I just I feel like that the Europeans who are now driving Magento are forgetting about the US market and how big it is.
I can't, I don't know. Can't really speak on markets too much. I'm not too intelligent on them, to be honest, the geographic locations. Whatever they're doing, I would love more of that in the States, right, of course. But any kind of innovation that they can supply to us or make widely known, that would be great.
But so your students, do you still have a lot of students coming out of India, and India is still just a huge development center for all things e-commerce?
So M Academy is very international. We have students registered in over 85 countries, over 15,000 growing. Yeah. So it is all over the world. But as far as percentages and where they're coming from, definitely a lot of activity in Europe, in the States, in India.
Anything that you want people to know about Marko? Any way that they can tell us the best way for them to download it, to try it, to play with it, to build resources, to do some community around it.
Sure. Check out, I'll have tons of posts about it. Just check out Marko framework. You can go to Marko.build. It's a publicly facing site, which will have links where you can use Marko Talk. You can, connect with other developers that are using it. You can check out the GitHub from there and get a rundown and why it's important in today's world. So that'll give you a lot of info on it. And of course, the README in the GitHub, it has extensive documentation. I was very adamant about what does this do? What does that do? How do I build something? What do I have to do to implement a specific feature? It's all fully documented. Right now, it's over, I think, 17,000 lines of code, and it's extensively documented. I'd love any feedback you have. It's going to be a very open framework. So be open to taking in PRs and really innovating and growing with the larger PHP ecosystem.
Any challenges you want to issue to some developers out there, and what you'd like to see done on the framework?
Of course, the commerce. That's number one. I want to see a commerce package. I will be building one, I'm sure, myself, but I'd like you to push it, right? Push the limits. The server-side event module is a great idea, and you can definitely install the Marko framework locally. I will have development workflows in place. My typical development now is I talk with the AI for about 10 or 15 minutes and flush out a full plan. And then I have it completely carry out the plan autonomously. It has a plan writer, a devil's advocate reviewer. Once you approve the plan, it kicks off autonomously on a loop with test-driven development. So everything has tests. Everything is extensively documented. It follows code patterns and standards. You'll probably still have issues, of course, when it's done building, but they should be few and far between. I've had very good experience like building the server-side events modules and Redis modules and things like that. So yeah, it's anything you think would make a great module for Marko and that could be used across tens of thousands or millions of sites. Definitely try to get it in the framework so you can use it as that core piece and then build on top of it for your own custom functionality.
I should ask: is it Claude, Codex, Gemini? Any of the builders out there that you'll be able to glom onto? Or are you favoring one
Oh,
over the other?
I've been using Claude Code since the day it came out, and I have not used really anything since. Worked great from day one. I have a course on it, of course, at M Academy if you want to check it out. I'll teach you all about it. But I am a huge Cloud Code fan. It has a lot of very specific ways to do things, which I like how it's opinionated like that. And it just allows me to do everything that I need to do. I haven't had any reason to check out another platform. It's just the models are so good and they're innovating and they're advancing and making it better all the time. That said, of course, I'd love it to work with every other, LLM that's out there, and I see no reason why it can't do that.
That's awesome. Mark Shust, Mark Shust is M.Academy and now Marko.build. What a great conversation. Thank you.
All right, thanks a bunch. Thanks for having me, Brent.
Okay.